Hey, everybody, it's Scott Steen with winnersandwhiners.com coming to you with the Tuesday edition of Today in Sports Betting. As always, I am joined by my co-host with the most, coming direct from sunny Florida. He is Scott Reichel. Buddy, what's up today?
Can't really complain too much. It's been a pretty good week so far. Truth is, I don't want to jinx anything for what happened today, but I feel like yesterday we kind of almost hit everything in sight, or at least
Yep.
it felt that way.
That was a good Monday. It was a very, very good Monday for both of us, and you and I,
We
we can
disagreed about the late game with the Lakers and the Wizards, and how'd that go for you?
you know what? I was about to text you in the third quarter when they were up by 18.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I better hold off on that one. And
Yep.
Lakers
I
just
said,
pissed away.
Wizards money line, maybe worth a sprinkle, and it turned out to be worth a couple of sprinkles.
You know, I didn't think the Lakers were going to piss it away. I thought if they were going to lose that game, they'd be behind. They'd just play a terrible game all the way through. I didn't think they would have a big lead and then piss it away in the fourth quarter. That part surprised me.
That part surprised me too. I thought the Wizards would get off to a better start. I was not surprised that when I said in the video, if you like the Lakers to cover, take the under, because I really just thought if it turned into a shootout, Washington would cover, and that's exactly what happened, having to go to overtime. And LeBron missing a pretty important free throw there at the end of regulation, which forced the game to go to overtime. And then he tried to, I don't know, maybe he saw that it was like 9:30 local time and thought I got to go to bed because he decided I'm going to chuck up a 35-footer for no reason with about, I don't even know what, 6 seconds on the clock, which seemed like a ridiculous shot at the time.
Yeah, I was working. I didn't watch that game. Once the Lakers were screwed, I turned it off.
Wizards were up 3, and then LeBron ended up basically just pulling up from 35 feet with about 6 seconds left just because why not? And he bricked the hell out of it, but I don't even know. There wasn't even a play. He just dribbled up to basically half court and just chucked it. So, LeBron's going to do LeBron things, and truth be told, he's going to win MVP anyway, so it's not like it really matters.
Well, that would have been great for his highlight reel for the MVP voters. So.
It would have, but that's the thing about the Lakers, which I find kind of amusing. I have money on LeBron to win MVP. He's going to win the MVP because the entire media is into the narrative approach this year. And yeah, the team can't win when Anthony Davis is out of the lineup, but yeah, LeBron's still going to win MVP, which I find pretty fascinating.
Yeah, well, we could spend many shows debating what MVP actually means. If it's the most valuable player in the league, most valuable player to your team, best player.
It's pretty much the player the media talks about the most. That's actually a superstar.
I
view it.
Yeah, okay. Again, we're not going to go down that road.
We're going to go down the full road, but I think you can agree it's mostly just a media frenzy award.
It's there's a certain amount of truth. I'm probably not buying in as much as you are on that narrative. So.
That's fair. I'm just following what the betting odds are also indicating and stuff like that. I mean, LeBron's odds have plummeted over the last 3 weeks.
Well, that's definitely true. And
that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think LeBron's put up insane performances like Jokic and Embiid, who both had 50 within the last couple of weeks, and yet LeBron's gone from plus 280 to plus 100. The fact that he's even money already and the Lakers keep losing but nobody cares, I think kind of tells me all I need to know.
Well, again, it's a long season, so yep. We'll see what happens. I don't have a ton on the card today. We got a good college basketball game between ranked teams, and I do have my play of the day on that. Yeah, I guess we can reveal it now that you and I both had you had your Eastern Kentucky was your play of the day. That was one of my premium plays. So when you were talking about it yesterday, we didn't, of course, mention that, but that was a good one. That was wasn't exactly a no sweat victory like the Citadel was, which was my other premium play. That was an easy win. The Eastern Kentucky took a little work there in the afternoon, Bud, as the SEMO Redhawks went ice cold in the first half and couldn't hit anything, and just put us a little bit in the hole there at halftime, but we were able to rally. So yeah, that worked.
Truth is, I was on the beach and I kept checking my phone briefly. And then I think I took a nap and I woke up and I saw we won by about 1.5. I'm just like, all right, cool.
I actually watched that, and it was a game that was that we with about 4 minutes left, it should have been an easy victory for us. And then Eastern Kentucky finally figured out that they had about a 30-point lead, so we need to stop chucking it up quite so much. And so it got to be a little bit of a sweat there at the end, but we everything worked out okay. So. We've got one game involving ranked teams tonight, Scott. It's the last game on the betting board, and it is the Kansas Jayhawks and the Texas Longhorns down there from Austin, Texas. This game opened up as Texas is a 2-point favorite. It's now pretty much gone to 2.5 across the board. Opened up at 140. 138 is what you're going to find most places. A little bit of sprinkled 137.5 in this one. Like I said, I've got a play of the day here, Scott, but what do you got here?
Well, I know we talked about earlier this season how Kansas seems to always go through a bit of a rut, and then they pick it up at the end, and they look like arguably the best team in the entire conference. Seems to happen almost every year. We might have been a little bit early when we said that Kansas was going to bounce back about, I don't know, 2 times or so. But the third time was the charm, because ever since that loss that it ended up having against West Virginia on the road, it's been undefeated. Now, of course, the schedule has been pretty favorable. But Oklahoma State at home. Oklahoma State's definitely a better home team than road team. Beat Iowa State twice, which I think we might be able to do. Beat Kansas State, once again, we might be able to do that. And then beat Texas Tech at home. So there's been a mix of some good teams, some bad teams. I know Texas Tech, we both are not that high on, and they ended up losing in overtime yesterday. But looking at this matchup here, I've mentioned before how Texas had a lot of, I'd say, step-up games so far this season, besides the one game at Fieldhouse earlier this year where Texas took Kansas behind the woodshed. This team really hasn't performed well against the top-tier teams. Lost to Villanova at home, lost to Baylor at home. You had a couple of just underwhelming performances here. And based on how Kansas have played lately, I don't want to be laying with Texas. I can understand why the line movement has come in the way it has, because people remember Texas killing Kansas at Kansas about 2 months ago. So I'm not surprised you have seen this line movement, but I do think Kansas right now is the more consistent team. And Texas has just, I don't know, it's just something about this team that I think they might have peaked a little bit too early. And I know what this team is. I'll lean to Kansas, but I'm not exactly thrilled by it. But when you're getting Kansas plus about 3.5, I definitely think that's a more attractive play. Or, I'm sorry, plus 3. And that's more attractive than laying the 3 here with Texas. So I'll lean Kansas.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you're like, well, give me Texas's best win this season, and you could argue it would be
It'd probably be at West Virginia if I really had to think of it.
They also had North Carolina on a neutral court.
I don't think that aged too well. That was the championship game.
That's the problem.
Yeah. That's the championship game for a tournament, but still, North Carolina's not very good.
But yeah, and like you said, every time they had a step-up game, with the exception of Kansas, and the way Kansas is playing right now, you can argue that was their biggest win. Of course, they win by 25 points there at Allen Fieldhouse. But other than that, like you said, going to West Virginia, which I think West Virginia is I think they're a high average team. They're gonna make the tournament, but they're not going to make much noise. But every time they've had a chance to step up, they haven't been able to do it. They've got a loss to Oklahoma, lost to Baylor, and all at home, of course.
Also, a huge choke job against Texas Tech at home.
Well, speaking of huge choke jobs, a huge choke job last time out against West Virginia, as they had I think they had an 18-point, 16-point lead there, and managed to pistol away in the second half, lose by 2. So my question, Scott, and you and I have talked about this before, and I think we're kind of on the same page. How much stock do you put in the revenge factor or the pissed off factor? In other words, KU's coming in. They're looking for revenge. They had the 25-point home loss. They're ready to make amends for that. On the other hand, Texas gave a game away on Saturday. So which team has more? Is there a motivation angle here? Does it matter? Is Self using that as billboard material that, hey, they beat us by 25, we got to step up?
Is he using it as billboard material? I have to assume so.
Or bulletin? How about bulletin board? Probably not.
Either way,
a lot more expensive.
Yeah, either way. If bulletin board material, he's probably using it. Do I think it's going to matter? No. I think it would have mattered if Texas took care of business over the weekend, because you can argue maybe Texas would have a little bit of a letdown spot because the game would be more meaningful to Kansas than Texas. But realistically, both these teams really want to win. Kansas, of course, is going to use the embarrassing showing against Texas earlier this season as motivation for this game. Texas might just argue we blew a 16-point lead against West Virginia. Get it together. I think that's going to be Shaka Smart's speech pretty much going into the game, saying how this team was a top 4 team in the country. and then it kind of hit a bit of a wall in conference play. So do I think it's going to matter for the sake of motivation in this game? Not really. I just think both teams know how important the game's going to be for tournament seeding. Kansas isn't on the bubble anymore, so it doesn't really have to worry about winning to get into the tournament. But of course, you still want to improve your conference standings for the sake of the conference tournament. So do I think it's going to play a factor for motivation? Not really. I think both teams will give it their best shot, but right now, I do think Kansas is in better form, which is why I'll lean to Kansas in this spot.
Yeah, I think KU. I think they do want to improve their seeding. I think they'd like to be the 2 seed there in the tournament, and so they don't have to face Baylor until the.
We're talking about the conference tournament, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Until the final game.
Yeah.
So they are in third place right now. They're a game back of Oklahoma.
That's the crazy part, is that even though Kansas was unranked and lost about 5 in a row at some point, still third in conference play in the standings, which I find pretty fascinating because Texas is 14th in the country, only 7-5 in conference play.
Yeah, it's weird. Well, of course, KU's won 5 straight. That's.
Well, just in general, though, you also look at the standings, and none of these teams have played the same amount of games. Baylor's played 9, Oklahoma's played 13, Kansas has played 16, Texas has played 12. I mean, COVID's really done a number on the conference. So
yeah, it's very weird, and I'll tell you the selection committee has their work cut out for them this year because you've got, at least you've usually got equal footing as far as number of games and common opponents and things, and it's nuts this season. So good luck. I'm sure nobody will complain about the field of 64. I'm sure everything.
Usually you get one team in there that most people think shouldn't be in the dance, but they end up finding a way. I remember it was Syracuse a couple of years ago, and I think they made it to the Elite Eight or the Final Four, and they barely got in. I know VCU a long time ago arguably shouldn't have gotten in, and they ended up making it to the Final Four as well.
Right.
Seems like the last team in that's questionable to actually make the dance always seems to win a game or two. So I'm kind of curious if that'll happen this year, especially since every game is going to be taking place in
Indiana.
Yeah, in Indiana, which, has to depend on travel, potential COVID outbreaks in the middle of the tournament, which I'm sure there's going to be at least one of, which is going to be pretty devastating to brackets. But
I think so.
I'd have to assume so. But either way, both these teams are going to get in, of course. Kansas was on the bubble a little bit. I know that I thought they would kind of get it together. You were a little bit more on the fence at the time, but either way, playing Iowa State twice in Kansas State definitely helps boost morale. That's all I'm going to say.
But again, they picked up 2 wins against 2 likely tournament teams as well. So we can't discount that. Oklahoma State barred from postseason play this year, most likely to make the tournament because they're under appeal. So that'll be unless the NCAA rules against them between now and 3 weeks from now, they're going to be a tournament team.
Well, they should be, especially the win yesterday against Texas Tech. They're going dancing.
Yeah, that was a big win. So, I think you and I are both on the same side here. I've got this as a play of the day. So if you've already watched that video, my apologies. But yeah, this is I like this KU team in this spot. There's no way I'm back in Texas. And again, you'd think I would learn by now is watching 20 years of Big 12 basketball and 50 years of KU. They do it every year for the most part with a midseason swoon. They might have an injury. The guys kind of struggle to get on the same page, and then Self figures it out. Mm-hmm. And they get everybody playing together. They learn what their role is.
They make a deep run in the conference tournament, and then they lose in the round of 32 or the round of 16.
Yeah, that's pretty much. Or they go to the Final Four. There's not a lot of
something like that. They're not going to win the thing, but they usually end up building up hope, and then it automatically crashes at some point.
Yeah, it's usually quite a ride with the Jayhawks. So yeah, I think you and I are both on the same side. Take a top 20 team with getting points on the road. That's a pretty good rule of thumb for me.
That's how I'm viewing it.
All right. Anything else on the college board get your attention today? And I mean, that's I know you and we talked about the challenges of coming up with plays, and I know yesterday, again, those 2 plays just kind of popped out as far as my premium plays, and then I liked Duke for a lot of the same reasons I like KU. Anything grab your attention today? It was a little more of a struggle. You've got some great teams playing against some really bad teams. You got, Illinois, Michigan State. You've got, Scott, this Villanova St. John's game intrigues me.
I personally lean to the under in that one. But
Yeah, 152 is a ton. You're
it's
right.
already moved a decent amount, though. It was at 155 last night, but it's at 152 now. I just know Villanova had some comments. I believe it was from Robinson Earl, who said that after they had a couple of games canceled because of COVID, they spent the whole week practicing. And he basically said that the defense finally looks like the way that Jay Wright's defenses usually look. So Villanova potentially could be an under team moving forward. I know over the weekend it completely just shut down Connecticut, only giving up 60 points. And I know St. John's, off of an embarrassing loss to DePaul, but I think Villanova defensively should put the clamps down. I think you'll see a little bit of a lower scoring game between those two teams.
Would you rather take Mississippi Valley State plus 28.5 or Iowa State plus 23.5?
It's an excellent question. I would probably rather take the 28.5. I don't want to take either side.
Right.
I know that Baylor hasn't played in a couple weeks, and you might be wondering about a potential rust situation. I've seen Baylor do it all season long. This team has come back, and then I think it beat Kansas State by about 95. I don't really want to bother. Baylor is the second best team in the country, arguably the best team. You can argue that there's a 1A, 1B situation between Gonzaga and Baylor, and I'm not going to argue with you. I don't want to go against the top two team in the country. So for me, I'll look at these two teams and I'll say, well, I'd rather fade Baylor or Texas Southern. I know that, of course, they have to balance out the fact that Iowa State is significantly better than Mississippi Valley State.
Right.
But I can't lay 28.5 with Texas Southern. I just can't do that. So based on principle, I'll lean to plus the points with Mississippi Valley. Am I going to take it? Hell no. But if I had to choose between the two, that's the one I'll pick.
All right. Any interest in Oklahoma covering 10.5 against K-State?
I think I have to be somewhat interested, but that seems like a spot where you might just see an absolute rock fest where just both teams don't really do anything offensively and you have to cover 10 where each basket feels like 3 baskets.
Total 131 in that one tells you a lot about
you know what I'm talking about, though. One of those games where first team to 55 wins and you're laying 10.5. And each possession feels like an absolute just uphill battle.
They each possession runs 28 seconds, and they get off a bad shot at the end. Yeah, I don't know about I know that there's a little bit of a thought that K-State's maybe turned it around here a little bit. I don't know.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, laying as a rule, laying points as a road team in conference play, not necessarily a path to success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm not going to touch that game.
All right, good enough. Let's move on to the NABA, Scott, to the NBA. We've got a couple of TV games tonight, starting with a team we haven't talked about a lot that doesn't seem to make a lot of TV appearances, which is kind of weird. The Boston Celtics taking on the Dallas Mavericks. That's going to be the early game. Hey, surprise, Scott. Kristaps Porzingis is questionable for this one with back problems. Who would have seen that?
For some reason, does not surprise me.
You're not stunned about that piece of news?
I'm not. I think the more surprising thing, which a lot of people haven't realized, the fact that Porzingis is one of the worst defenders in the entire league this season. And it's not a coincidence that the order of games here, if you want to look at how many points they've given up lately, basically all in the 120s for the most part. And then he didn't play yesterday, and Dallas gave up 92 points.
Yeah.
So that's not a coincidence. Porzingis, according to metrics and statistics, has been one of the worst defenders in the entire league.
Yeah, and they're on a back-to-back here, and
I like the under in this spot.
Are you just baking in the fact Porzingis isn't going to play?
No, I'm saying Porzingis not playing is even better for the under, not just because of the fact that he can score, but because of the fact that defensively this team is significantly better when he's not on the court.
I understand. So are you already assuming that he's not going to play?
Yes. Porzingis, yeah, I don't think he's going to play.
Okay. Do you base that on anything in particular?
Simply put, I think that he's, of course, an injury-prone guy, but we saw him play yesterday, and Dallas looked pretty good without him. So I don't really think they're going to need to rush him back, so to speak.
You mean we saw him sit yesterday?
Yeah.
You said we saw him play.
I mean, we saw Dallas play yesterday.
Sorry. Oh, okay. Without him.
Dallas play yesterday without him, and they looked pretty good. I think it's a situation where they might just rest him again and just say, I think we can take this one. I'm not saying that they can. They might be wrong about it, but I think had they lost yesterday's game, they would have been more pressured to bring him back. But since they actually had a good performance, I don't think Porzingis is going to play.
And Dallas has been stone cold awful on the second game of back-to-backs.
Mm.
So I'm going to I'll take Boston here. I don't mind your underplay either. I think that's fair.
I like Boston as well. It's a matter of I know Boston blew away a massive lead against New Orleans, which was a pathetic second half showing by the Celtics there.
Right.
But it's just a matter of Dallas been terrible on back-to-backs. Porzingis being out, I think, does definitely play a factor offensively for Dallas, especially since this team should be pretty fatigued after playing yesterday. But Boston, I still don't really think Kemba Walker's even close to 75% healthy because his jump shot is completely broken, and yet he still takes about 13 threes a game. At least he did on Sunday, and he made one of them, which is a huge reason why they lost. But I just don't think Dallas has the wings to stay in front of Brown and Tatum, especially on a back-to-back. I just think it's going to be a pretty tough spot there for Dallas. Do I think the game will be close? Yeah, probably for about three quarters, but I think Dallas will I think Dallas will fall apart a little bit down the stretch. I think Boston should probably win a lower scoring game by about 5, but I think this game will probably land in the 210s.
Okay. All right, very good. Yeah, I'm pretty much right on board with that as well.
Mm.
And then we've got our late game, which is what is the late TV game there, Scott? I had the schedule up. Oh, it's Portland Denver.
Yep.
I went back over the games. I went, yeah, nothing stands out there. Yes, the Portland Trail Blazers and your Denver Nuggets. There.
My Denver Nuggets. Yeah, okay.
Denver's 6-point favorite. Looks like 232 is the number. And I've actually got Denver 6.5 on this one, and BetOnline has them at 231.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know. Who you like here?
Well, after that fantastic way of asking me, I'm probably going to lean to the over in this one, looking at these two teams. Truth is, I know that Portland has actually been a pleasant surprise. I'm sure a lot of people haven't been surprised that this team is good, but I think they were kind of shocked once McCollum and Nurkic got injured that this team has not only stayed afloat, but it's actually done pretty well. However, I've told you all season long, I'm still not really sold on this Portland team. And I'm curious if a potential slump is brewing, losing to the Wizards at home by 7. I know Washington's won 5 in a row, but still, then having to travel to Phoenix and a loss by 32. I mean, that game was over after about the second quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Denver, on the other hand, has also been slumping, lost 3 of 4. However, it was in the middle of a long road trip, ended up having to travel to the East Coast for 4 straight games, now returning back home to Ball Arena. I still think is one of the worst names for an arena in all of basketball. But either way, I can understand why money's coming on Portland. I just don't really like Portland in the spot, especially since Portland had to play yesterday. I don't know how much fatigue's going to play a factor. You can pretty much rest all your starters for the entire fourth quarter. But still, this team had to play at Phoenix and now has to travel to Denver. And I think Denver should be pretty poised for a bounce back. Am I going to take Denver? No, because I don't trust the team laying points. But I do think you'll see a bit of a track meet breakout, especially since Jamal Murray has found his shooting stroke over the last couple of games. I think you'll see Jokic do whatever he wants against Kanter, because Kanter can't guard him. I think you'll see Lillard do whatever he wants, and I think you'll see Murray do whatever he wants. I see points. So for that reason, I'll take the over. I think both teams probably get into high 1-teens to low 120s, so I like the over in this spot.
Yeah, not a great defensive squad on either side. Scott, is there anywhere that would be worse to play the second day of a back-to-back with travel than at altitude there in Denver?
Probably. If I could assume any other spot, I'd say no. But at the end of the day, you also have to wonder if fatigue will play a huge factor since, as I mentioned before, the game's such a blowout that you can pretty much bench everybody and just let Lillard rest for the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I'll take Denver in this spot. I'll take Denver and lean over.
I kind of am the same way, but reversed. I feel better about the over, but I'd still lean to Denver.
I know. Yeah, that's a big number with Denver. That's 6.5. But they haven't really been afraid of gigantic numbers there at home. They took care of business against Cleveland.
Cleveland I think has not covered a point spread in about 3.5 weeks.
It's been a minute.
I'm
So
really shocked that team fell apart after deciding to not play Drummond, who is arguably their best player.
weird, right?
And it's really weird how that works.
Yeah, I'll take. So you and I are kind of on the same side. Just we have just a little different emphasis on that one.
Yeah.
Anything else on the NBA card to get your attention?
Well, I thought about giving this out as play of the day, but I decided to go to college instead because college has been pretty good to me lately. I was looking at the Orlando-Detroit game. I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking about laying 2.5 last night with Orlando. It's up to 3.5 now. I know that Detroit, of course, is an awful team, one of the worst teams in the league. However, that somehow got worse because their starting point guard, DeLon Wright, is officially out indefinitely as he ended up suffering a groin injury, averaging roughly 10, 5, and 5. So he's actually been a pretty good all-around player. And now the starting point guard, Dennis Smith Jr., the guy who has gotten thrown around the league and has not been able to perform pretty much anywhere. And he's played a little bit for Detroit, and shocker, he has not played well. You go through this lineup for Detroit, and you got Dennis Smith Jr., Wayne Ellington, rookie Sadiq Bey, Jeremy Grant. Jeremy Grant's a very good player, and Mason Plumlee. That's just not a team that's going to win many games. And I know Orlando has surprisingly actually played well over the last week or so. Beat Golden State, beat Detroit. This is actually going to be the second game in a row between these two teams, which kind of gave me a little bit of pause. But I think Detroit's so bad that I kind of have to go with Orlando in that spot.
How about the battle of the streaks there in Brooklyn?
Yeah, I was going to say, I saw a prop on Bet Online, which was the next coach to be fired. And Luke Walton's favored at around plus 250. Truth is, if they lose another 2-3 games in a row or so, I think they're just going to send him packing because this Sacramento team has completely just fallen apart.
We'll see how he finishes out the road trip because they got Brooklyn, then they have New York, and then they go to Detroit.
That's what I'm saying. Detroit, they should win. I think the Knicks might actually beat them in that game.
Well, they're not going to fire him off of a win, so
correct. But the thing is, you have to look at all the other coaches on that prop. I thought Scott Brooks had a decent chance of being fired, but the Wizards, of course, have won 5 in a row. Now they're in contention. He's not going to get fired. They're going to hold on to him because now they have the illusion of hope. You look at Dwayne Casey in Detroit. That team is awful, but you look at the roster. They're not playing Blake Griffin anymore. DeLon Wright got injured. I don't see them firing him midseason. I think people knew going into the year Detroit's basically punting. So I think Casey might make it to the end of the season and then get fired during the offseason. I think there's a really good chance Luke Walton gets fired in about a week or two. I just look at that team and say Sacramento earlier this season beat Denver a couple times. You had a pretty nice nucleus of Fox.
Well, they had a nice run right before their losing streak. They won 7 of 8 and covered all 8 right before their losing streak.
No, correct. But I'm saying even before that, going into the year, you had Fox, Hield, even some people still like Bagley. I don't, but some people do. You still look at the rest of the team and you look at Halliburton, who's been a very good rookie, and you say to yourself, this team might compete for maybe an 8 or a 9 seed, like maybe going into the year. And then you look at the season and you say to yourself, Walton arguably shouldn't have been brought back after last year in the first place. I don't think he should have been brought back. I'm shocked they brought him back. But then Sacramento is the worst defense in the league. They're 30th out of 30. They can't guard anybody. And this team has looked disengaged, and they look like they've quit on the coach. If you've watched them over the last 2 weeks or so,
yeah, they've lost 7 straight, and they've lost by an average of over 10 points per game.
They're getting killed.
So they're not being
close.
Yeah, they're not being competitive. You finally saw the first double-digit line for them in their last game against Milwaukee. Didn't matter.
They got killed.
Bucks still took care of business there. And
do you agree with that idea plus 250? Because I really think Walton, if this losing streak extends for a couple more games, I don't know how
he ain't coming home from the road trip, dude. If he loses the next 3, he's staying in Detroit. He ain't coming home.
I hope for his sake they can beat Detroit because that bar has been set pretty low.
Right.
Plus 250, though, he's really one guy who jumps off the page as being fired mid-season.
It's also possible that if he gets blown out in New York the next 2 nights, against Brooklyn and against New York,
they might just send him home.
They might just send him home. Yeah, he may not make it to Detroit. I would think
of other coaches who might get fired mid-season. Lloyd Pierce, I don't think is that good with Atlanta, but the Eastern Conference is so bad.
Yeah,
even these bottom feeders are still potentially in the playoff mix.
Well, and on the other side of the ball, Scott, you've got Brooklyn, who's all of a sudden heating up. They've won 6 straight, and they've covered 6 straight.
And they also killed Sacramento about, a week ago.
Yeah, they beat them by 11 in Sacramento. That was part of their
They're up
losing.
about 30 with about 6 minutes to go before the bench unit gave up like a 14-0 run.
Yeah,
That game was
that's
over.
part of the losing streak. So I don't know how you I don't know how you go against the Nets here. I just don't.
I have to like the Nets as well. The only issue you have to wonder is after a West Coast trip where they took care of business against good teams, is this a letdown spot against one of the worst teams in the Western Conference? I don't
Yep.
think it matters. I think Sacramento is a lost cause. I don't know if you agree with me about the prop I just mentioned with Walton being fired next at plus 250. I think that should be closer to plus 140.
I think if you can get 250 today, I think that's a good price.
I don't really know how Walton's going to keep his job. This team is completely just falling apart.
Yeah, well, the good news is you probably could have got it at about 500 2 weeks ago.
Well, you would have lost because you ended up having Saunders.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, you have had one
I
fight.
should have taken Saunders to get fired because I told you he should have been fired about 3 weeks ago, and he
Well,
was actually the next coach.
although according to you, like half the NBA coaches should have already been fired.
That is fair. I think you can agree that Luke Walton is definitely on the short list of coaches.
Yes, yeah. Anytime your team is mired in a losing streak like that, you've got to be on the list. So,
yeah.
All right. Anything else get your attention?
Overall, not really. I already mentioned the underlean in the Celtics and Mavericks game. I feel like you kind of have to look at Atlanta. I don't like laying this big of a spread with an underwhelming team, but Cleveland, as I said before, hasn't covered a spread in I don't even know how long.
7 years.
It's been a long time.
Has it been since LeBron was there?
It feels that way. I'll tell you that much. But Cleveland has not covered a point spread since, January 27th.
It's been a minute. Yeah, they
about a month.
Again, and they did it against Detroit. So, they haven't covered a spread since a non-Detroit team since the 24th. It's been just brutal.
So I said it was about 9 games. There were 13 against the spread in their last.
Yeah.
So I think you kind of blindly have to look towards Atlanta.
Why not?
I mean, taking Cleveland there is just Russian roulette at that point.
Yeah, and now Drummond's sitting out.
They're punting.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's Love he's done. That's what a shame. I always like Kevin Love.
He's still injured. They're probably going to either cut him or ship him. They got Jared Allen now, who's played okay, but this current rotation is not built to win games. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, no.
So I got to at least look to Atlanta in this spot because Cleveland hasn't covered in a month.
Yeah, agreed.
Anyway, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, a couple of real streak riders for today. So
yeah.
All right, very good, my friend. I know you're anxious to get back onto the beach, so we're going to wrap it up. Remind everybody that if you're looking for more information to develop some of your own plays, something that we didn't mention, make sure you stop by and check out winnersandwhiners.com. They're doing deep dives, previews, predictions on every game every single day. It is a very, very valuable resource for all your handicapping needs. And, of course, we wish you guys nothing but the best today. Hope every one of those tickets in your pocket turns into cash money back at the window. You guys have a great day, even if you're not sitting there in a nice condo looking at the beach. Try to have a good day anyway, all right? And everybody take care. For myself, for Scott Reichel, for all of us over here at Winners and Whiners, we appreciate you guys watching today, and we'll be looking forward to doing it again tomorrow on Today in Sports Betting. Take care, everybody.